60 warships gone, not retreating, not surrendering, gone, sunk, burned or swallowed by the Baltic Sea in less than 1 hour. 10,000 warriors, the most feared fighting force in the known world, marched home in silence, their capital reduced to ash, their archbishop's severed head left on an altar, and the bronze doors of their holiest cathedrals stolen like a souvenir. For 300 years, the Vikings had terrorized the entire known world. They had sacked Paris, enslaved the English, raided the coasts of North Africa, and made emperors beg for peace. But somewhere in the cold forests and shallow waters of the eastern Baltic, they found something they had never once encountered. An enemy who had studied them, outsmarted them, and decided it was time to end the game entirely. This is the story of the Curonians and the Oselians, the tribes that didn't just fight the Vikings. They humiliated them. For 3 centuries, the Baltic Sea had been Sweden's private hunting ground. The Norse viewed the eastern shores the way a wolf views a shepherd's field, not as a place to respect, but as a place to raid. They came every summer. They took what they wanted: slaves, silver, livestock, women. The Baltic tribes, the Curonians on the southern coast, the Oselians on the island of Saaremaa, were considered prey, not people. The Vikings had a word for it. The East was a warehouse, and they held the keys. What the Swedes never considered, not even for a moment, was that the people they were robbing were watching them, learning the tides, counting the oars, memorizing the weaknesses of a drakkar hull, and quietly, in the silence of forests the Norsemen never dared enter, they began building ships of their own. The warning signs were there, if anyone had bothered to read them. Viking ships were vanishing, not in storms, in good weather. Danish patrol vessels sent near Saaremaa never returned. The whispers were dismissed. Weather, rocks, the usual hazards of the sea. What no Swedish captain wanted to admit was that the usual hazards didn't usually leave behind no survivors, no wreckage, no explanation at all. The Baltic tribes had mastered something the Vikings never developed: operational silence. They didn't leave witnesses. The first real blow came at Gotland. It was a Tuesday morning, the kind of grey dawn that makes every horizon look the same, when Swedish lookouts spotted sails on the water, dark sails moving fast. Moving wrong, not in the organized formation of a trading convoy or even a raiding fleet, but in a chaotic swarming pattern that made no sense to men trained in line-of-battle tactics. By the time the Swedes understood what they were seeing, the Oselians were already throwing iron hooks. Not boarding to fight hand-to-hand like honorable warriors. No, they launched burning torches onto sailcloth. They hurled clay pots filled with venomous snakes onto crowded decks. They threw quicklime, the kind that burns skin on contact, directly into the faces of oarsmen. This wasn't war as the Vikings understood it. This was something colder, more deliberate, more terrifying. Some Swedish warriors chose to throw themselves overboard rather than face whatever was coming over the rails. Men who had never feared death in battle chose drowning. That tells you everything you need to know about what the Oselians were doing to their minds. The news reached Sigtuna, Sweden's beating heart, its most powerful city. The way the worst news always does, slowly, then all at once. Bodies washed ashore on Swedish beaches, beheaded, impaled on stakes driven into the sand. This wasn't a message written in words. It was a message written in corpses, and it said one thing: the Baltic is no longer yours. King Canute Eriksson had a choice: fortify the coast, wait, rebuild strength behind walls. He made the other choice. He chose to crush them absolutely, publicly and fast. Before the story spread and the other kingdoms started wondering if the Norse giant had feet of clay. He launched 300 ships and 10,000 men. The greatest fleet Sweden had ever assembled set sail from Stockholm, with steel gleaming and priests blessing and wives waving from the docks. It looked like the prelude to total victory. It was the prelude to catastrophe. What Knut did not know, could not have imagined, was that Sigtuna was full of spies. The city was an international trading hub. Russians, Germans, Wends, Baltic merchants, all of them walked those streets freely, bought and sold openly, and, apparently, counted ships. When the Swedish fleet set sail, a small, fast vessel slipped out of port ahead of it, heading south. The message it carried to the Curonians was simple. The nest is empty. The she-wolf has left her cubs alone. On the Curonian coast, the Swedish army landed to find nothing. Empty villages, no resistance, livestock vanished, wells poisoned. The enemy had simply dissolved into the forest, and the forest, dense, waterlogged, mapped by no Norseman alive, became a weapon. The Swedish army marched in circles. Their guides, locals hired out of desperation, led them into swamps where horses broke their legs and armored men sank into black mud up to their thighs. Every night sentinels vanished, 3, 4 men at a time, without a scream, without a sound, leaving only empty posts and bloody ground. The most powerful military force in the Norse world was being systematically dismantled by an enemy they could not see, could not find, and could not fight. The captains argued, where are their cities? Where is their gold? The forest gave them nothing but silence, while 10,000 Swedish warriors marched in circles 300 kilometers away. The Curonian fleet appeared on Lake Mälaren at dawn, 1,000 oars striking water in the mist. No warning, no negotiation. By the time the city guard realized what was happening, the shallow draft Baltic vessels had already slid over every defensive barrier in the harbor like water over stone. The speed differential alone was decisive. Baltic warriors in light leather armor against the few defenders left in heavy Norse chainmail. The main gate of Sigtuna fell in 15 minutes. The flames came next. Archbishop Johannes gathered the women and children in the cathedral, the way terrified people always retreat to the most sacred place they know, as if walls blessed by God might stop men who worship different gods entirely. The doors came down. The archbishop was beheaded on the altar steps, his blood running across the same ornaments he had consecrated for decades. And then the Curonians did something that the Norse world would never fully recover from psychologically. They didn't burn the cathedral. They took the bronze doors, stripped them right off the frame and carried them home as trophies. Not just metal, but the physical embodiment of Swedish power and prestige, hauled away like furniture. The smoke from Sigtuna was visible 20 kilometers away, rising like a question mark over the remains of Norse supremacy. When King Canute finally accepted defeat in the forest and ordered the retreat to the ships, his vanguard reached the beach to find 50 of his vessels already burning, the guards dead with black Baltic arrows in their throats. And then a fishing boat arrived with a torn sail and a messenger who could barely speak. The archbishop was dead, the doors were gone. 10,000 warriors, men who had crossed seas and burned cities, stood on a beach and lowered their eyes. The journey home was a hunt. The Baltic is not kind to demoralized men in heavy ships. The Curonians had painted their small, fast vessels grey-blue, the color of cold water, and they emerged from the fog near Gotland with clay pots of boiling pitch and unshakable purpose. They didn't board, they targeted sails. A ship without sails in the Baltic is a floating coffin, and the Norse fleet, already battered and exhausted, broke formation within minutes. Jarl Ulf's ship turned and ran first, and then it was every captain for himself. King Canute made the coldest decision a commander can make: keep sailing. The cries of the men left behind faded into the fog, and then into silence. What remained of the Swedish fleet returned to a coast that smelled of ash and rot before they could even see the shore. Sigtuna was gutted. The merchant houses stood empty. The cathedral was a shell of scorched stone with nothing where the doors had been, just darkness and flies and the unbearable echo of what had been lost. King Canute walked through it, and at some point let his helmet fall from his hand. The metallic clang in that dead square said everything his mouth could not. The hunters had become prey. The warehouse had burned down, and somewhere in the forests of Saaremaa and Courland, the tribes who were never supposed to be capable of any of this were realizing something intoxicating and dangerous. Together, They were unstoppable. That realization, that hunger for more, would eventually lead them south, toward an enemy that didn't make the same mistake the Swedes had made. An enemy that wouldn't dismiss them, wouldn't underestimate them, and wouldn't send an army into a forest. The Livonian Order of Sword Brothers was watching, and they were already writing back to Rome.